what does Black resilience mean to me? So imagine you had a product that could be sold to millions of people and you couldn't earn a patent simply because you were Black. When I think about Black resilience, I think of my great-great-grandfather, Henry Boyd, is the epitome of Black resilience. Hi, my name is Keith Boyd. I work in U.S. Oncology, Learning and Development, and I've worked here at Merck for 7 years. So before the great Madam C.J. Walker became the first Black millionaire in the early 1900s for making hair and beauty products, there was my great-great-grandfather, Henry Boyd, who was arguably the most successful entrepreneur of the 1800s. But in order to tell you his story, I need to go back a little bit further. So according to the Constitution, all men are created equal. But unfortunately, under Article 1, Section 2, it states or declares that all people born a slave or born not free were considered 3/5 human. That changed everything for quite a few folks. That meant our people couldn't own land. We couldn't own a license or vote. And more importantly, we couldn't even earn a patent for a product that we made. So until the ratification of the 13th Amendment on December 6, 1865, we were all subject to that same law. My great-great-grandfather was born in 1802 on a plantation in Kentucky. He was a slave until he was 18 years old, and upon his ability to earn his freedom, he worked on that plantation doing odd jobs. He showed at an early age the ability to build cabinetry, woodwork. He specialized in that. So his slave owner sent him off for apprenticeship. He saved up enough money to buy his own freedom at the age of 18, which was an extraordinary effort. Since Kentucky was close to Ohio and Ohio is a free state, the first thing he did was to leave that plantation and move to Cincinnati, Ohio. He ended up getting a job as a janitor at a general store. And one day, a drunken white man came into the store, almost destroyed the whole front store. So in order to protect his employer from would-be customers, he invented what we now call a countertop. It separated the business from the employees or the customers. Based off the success of building that countertop, he made up enough money to start up his own business doing carpentry work, and then made enough money to buy his brother's freedom and his sister's freedom. He became so successful, they had 4 locations plus a showroom. And in 1830, he wanted to do something that had not been done before. And his greatest invention was the modern day bed. Prior to that, there was an old expression back in the medieval times, which was, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Most people don't know where that comes from or what it means, but what it means is that beds were made with rope lattices and they were tightened down with a winch. And so sleep tight was to keep the ropes tight, and the winch sometimes would catch your fingers and would like bite your fingers. So sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite was the expression. With his design, he decided to create wooden lattices and with a right and left wooden screw to tighten it, and it made the bed frame sturdier and stronger. So you could put a thatch mattress on it or a mattress that was stuffed with feathers. So by 1833, and not being able to get a patent, he hired a white employee by the name of Gregory Porter. Gregory Porter then got a patent because my great-great-grandfather, being born a slave, was not allowed to then get a patent. They worked together. And I would dare say that my great-great-grandfather truly embraced DE&I because he hired 50 employees at any given point of all races because he understood the power of diversity. At the height of his success, his company would produce over 1,000 beds that were sold to local hotels and to very wealthy individuals. But what's interesting is that the Klan burnt down his factory. He built it again. The Klan burned it down again. He built it again. Third time they burned it down, the insurance companies said, we can't support this, but he was already ready to retire. But to me, that shows in the face of true racism, he was able to resist that and be successful. Because he couldn't get a patent, he had to figure out a way to make sure that he left his mark on all his work. So if you go to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History, on the 3rd floor, there is one of his beds that has been kept in pristine condition. And on the bedpost itself will be a stamp that says H. Boyd Company. And he did that on every bed that went out of his factory to ensure, because keep in mind, there were people that were copying his design. He didn't have a patent. His partner had to have the patent because his partner was white. But he wanted to make sure, for his family's sake, for history's sake, that his name lived on. It is a true testament of that resilience. If one path is shut down, you find another path to get around it, to be successful. The 1830s all the way up to the emancipation of our people, he was a very active player on the Underground Railroad and was known as a supporter of the abolitionists in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so he constructed a secret room in his house that could hold up to 5 people at any given point, that for those slaves that had made their way across the Ohio River, that was the first stop that they went to, the place that they could hide out. You have to keep in mind, during that time, slave catchers would also cross over those lines to go catch those that had run away for freedom. So he played an active role. He was so successful at this that he was often confused with Levi Coffin, who was sort of the head or the main person on the conductor, because so many of our people would go through his house first. So he fed them and he clothed them and he made sure that they had a way to go on to the next phase of their journey. Our history was not known to us readily. I wasn't the type of kid that grew up understanding or knowing this story. So when the Smithsonian was building that structure, my father had received a call from the Smithsonian asking questions about his great-grandfather. But one day, when that museum was finally open, I took my entire family to take a visit to see it, just like so many countless millions of people that have seen it. And my wife goes around the corner and she says, "Hey, Keith, it says Henry Boyd bed." And I was like, what are you talking about? I walk around, and to my surprise, right there was an exhibit of his bed and a write-up of his life, which prompted me to get on the cell phone and call my dad, and he was like, "Well, of course I told you, that's our history." But that started my journey of understanding my history, to really do the research, to understand where we come from, what we have done. I've often thought that my family had done really well and our achievements were significant, but had no idea that we were standing on the shoulders of a giant, someone who had amassed enough money to not only support his lifestyle, but to support his employees as well as the generations to be there after his death. So my great uncle is the first black lawyer in Colorado. My grandfather was a director of the Urban League, the National Negro Urban League. My father was a successful businessman and entrepreneur. My brother is a professor at the University of Maryland. We were able to do these things because of what my great-great-grandfather, Henry Boyd, the original Henry Boyd, had done. And it's also been able to pass on to my children. In fact, one of my children, his middle name is Henry, so that makes him Cole Henry Boyd, not to mention there's Curtis Henry Boyd, and then there's Thomas Orlando Boyd. And that sense of pride behind the name means everything. So when I think about my great-great-grandfather, and what I want you to remember most is never give up. Be resilient. Focus on what matters most and leave a lasting legacy.